Fleet Admiral Kekstar received the report from Earth with disbelief that quickly turned to terror. The supreme commander of all Zephyrian forces had conquered dozens of worlds over his long career, but nothing had prepared him for this revelation. He summoned his war council immediately for an emergency session. The council chamber filled with the Empire's most senior military officers. Commander Vextar appeared on the main display from Earth, his face showing the strain of recent discoveries. Science Director Holvar presented the evidence with clinical precision, but his voice betrayed his own fear. The humans possessed weapons, capable of destroying our entire invasion fleet within the first hour of combat, Holvar reported. Instead, they chose to fight us with their most primitive armaments. Their surrender was not born of weakness, but of calculated mercy. Admiral Kekstar's primary arms gripped the conference table while his secondary arms gestured in agitation. This is impossible. No species would choose defeat when they could achieve total victory. Their behavior makes no strategic sense. Commander Vextar disagreed. We have interrogated their military leaders and scientists extensively. Their reasoning is consistent across all individuals. They calculated the probable outcome if they deployed their true capabilities and decided that our complete destruction would force them to become the very monsters they sought to avoid becoming. The captured human scientists had been brought before Zephyrian military tribunals to explain their species' incomprehensible behavior. Dr. Helen Clark, former director of Earth's most classified weapons research, addressed the council via secure transmission. We ran computer simulations of full-scale deployment, Dr. Clark explained with disturbing calm. Our Omega-class weapons would have eliminated your invasion force completely. Your empire would have responded by sending larger fleets with more powerful weapons. The escalation would have continued until entire star systems became uninhabitable, wastelands. She paused to let her words sink in before continuing. We chose to accept occupation rather than become genocidal killers. Some prices are too high to pay, even for freedom. Intelligence reports painted an even more disturbing picture of humanity's hidden capabilities. Intercepted communications between resistant cells revealed that Earth's most devastating weapons remained fully operational. Commander Greg Phillips led a network of former military officers who maintained secret weapon platforms throughout human space. Captain Mary Stone commanded a group of scientists who could activate antimatter facilities within hours of receiving proper authorization codes. Their communications were filled with references to Omega protocols and final solutions that made Zephyrian intelligence officers break out in cold sweats. The scope of human weapon deployment became clear as more investigations proceeded. Every major city on Earth contained individuals who understood technologies that could reshape reality itself. Engineer Robert Kim had designed antimatter containment systems that could store enough destructive power to vaporize planets. Physicist Dr. Jennifer Nash had created equations for manipulating spacetime that even Zephyrian scientists could barely comprehend. Most unsettling were the military strategists like General Paul Martinez, who had planned for conflicts on a galactic scale. His classified documents outlined scenarios for wars between star-spanning civilizations and contained tactical doctrine for deploying planet-killing weapons as routine battlefield tools. They think about warfare the way we think about farming, observed intelligence officer Kixran during one briefing. Destroying solar systems is just another tactical option in their planning manuals. The psychological impact on Zephyrian forces was devastating. Soldiers who had proudly conquered worlds now realized they were occupying a planet full of beings who could annihilate them at will but chose not to. Morale collapsed as the truth spread through the ranks. Colonel Zekmoth reported increasing problems maintaining discipline among his occupation forces. The troops know they are guarding prisoners who could escape and kill them all whenever they choose to do so. Many soldiers are requesting immediate transfer off Earth. The most chilling discovery came from President Carter's final classified orders, found buried in a government archive beneath Washington, D.C. The document was simple, but its implications were staggering. Preserve the galaxy, the order read. Accept defeat rather than deploy Omega-class weapons. Future generations will judge whether we chose correctly. If humanity survives this occupation, we will rebuild. If we do not survive, at least we will not have become the destroyers of worlds. Carter's order had been distributed to every major military commander and weapons facility director before the invasion began. They had all agreed to follow a strategy of deliberate defeat, rather than risk the consequences of total victory. Fleet Admiral Kextar found himself facing an unprecedented crisis. The Zephyrian Empire ruled over a species that could have destroyed them effortlessly, but had chosen mercy instead. How could they maintain control over beings who possessed such terrible power, combined with such incomprehensible restraint? Request immediate reinforcements from all available fleets, Kextar ordered his staff. If the humans decide to activate their weapons, we need enough ships to evacuate our forces before Earth becomes uninhabitable. But his request was denied by High Command after they reviewed the human weapon specifications. The Supreme Council of the Zephyrian Empire reached a terrifying conclusion. If humanity deployed even a fraction of their true capabilities, the resulting conflict could sterilize half the galaxy. No reinforcements will be sent, came the reply from the Imperial capital. Any escalation risks triggering a war that could destroy both our civilizations. You must find a peaceful solution to this crisis. Meanwhile, human resistance leaders began receiving coded transmissions from hidden facilities across their former territory. The messages were always brief, but loaded with deadly potential. Omega protocols remain active, all systems operational, awaiting authorization codes. Former Admiral Jake Morrison had survived the destruction of his fleet and now worked as a civilian administrator under Zephyrian oversight. His job was managing reconstruction efforts in damaged cities, but his real purpose was maintaining contact with resistance networks. When Commander Vextar approached him for a private meeting, Jake knew the moment of truth had arrived. The alien leader's question was simple but carried the weight of entire civilizations. What would it take for humanity to remain peaceful? Vextar asked, his voice barely concealing desperation. Jake Morrison looked at the being who had conquered his world and smiled sadly. We were always peaceful. We chose to lose a war rather than win it through genocide. The question is not what it takes for us to remain peaceful. The question is whether your species is wise enough to deserve that peace. The meeting ended with both leaders understanding that everything had changed. The Zephyrian Empire no longer occupied Earth. They were guests who had overstayed their welcome in the home of beings powerful enough to destroy galaxies, but moral enough to choose a different path. As reports of humanity's true nature spread throughout the Empire, a new kind of fear took hold. For the first time in their history, the Zephyrians faced an enemy they could not defeat, because that enemy had already defeated itself to avoid becoming what victory would have made them. Junior researcher Tivlak walked through the abandoned corridors of what humans had called Los Alamos. His job was to catalog scientific equipment and research documents for the Empire's archives. Most of the material seemed typical for a primitive species trying to understand basic nuclear physics. The underground levels held more interesting discoveries. Tivlak found laboratories with equipment he did not recognize, and computer files protected by encryption systems that had taken Zephyrian experts months to break. When he finally accessed the classified documents, his four eyes widened in disbelief. The papers described weapons that made Zephyrian technology look like stone tools. Dr. Amy Peterson had designed antimatter bombs capable of cracking planets in half. Dr. Carl Morgan's notes detailed quantum cascade weapons that could unmake matter at the subatomic level. Most disturbing of all were the stellar engineering plans that showed how to weaponize entire stars. Tivlak's mandibles clicked nervously as he read through the documents. The dates showed these were not recent fantasies created after the invasion. These detailed engineering specifications had been written decades before first contact with the Zephyrian Empire. The humans had possessed blueprints for weapons that could destroy solar systems, yet they had fought the invasion with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. He immediately contacted Science Director Holvar, who commanded the research division of the occupation forces. Holvar listened to Tivlak's report with growing skepticism. "You must be mistaken," Holvar said over the communication link. "These humans fought us with primitive nuclear weapons. They cannot possibly understand advanced physics well enough to design such devices." But as more research facilities were investigated, The pattern became impossible to ignore. Every major human university and government laboratory contained similar documents. Scientists across Earth had been working on weapons projects that defied belief. In a hidden facility beneath the former NORAD complex, they discovered the remnants of Project Omega. Dr. Sandra White's research notes described humanity's attempt to harness zero-point energy as a weapon. The documents indicated they had been within months of completion when the Zephyrian invasion began. The prototype device still sat in its containment chamber, partially assembled but functional enough to demonstrate its terrible power. Zephyrian. Scientists who examined the machine calculated that it could generate energy equivalent to a supernova explosion in a space the size of a small room. "This is impossible," Holvar muttered as he reviewed the technical specifications. "Even our most advanced scientists do not fully understand zero-point energy manipulation. How could these primitive beings design such a device?" More disturbing discoveries followed. A secret base in the mountains of Colorado contained blueprints for artificial black hole generators. The designs showed how to create miniature singularities that could be guided like missiles to destroy entire fleets or planets. Nathan Gray had been the administrator of NASA before the invasion. Now he worked as a city planner under Zephyrian oversight, helping to rebuild damaged infrastructure. When intelligence officers brought him in for questioning about the weapons discoveries, his responses only deepened the mystery. "We chose not to use those weapons," Nathan said calmly. "The cost would have been too high for everyone involved." The interrogator, a Zephyrian officer named Kixvar, pressed for more details. "You possess the power to destroy our entire invasion fleet. Why did you not deploy these weapons?" Nathan looked at the alien officer with sad eyes. "Because we calculated what would happen next. Your empire would have sent more ships. The war would have escalated until whole star systems were destroyed. We decided that conquest was preferable to mutual annihilation." Similar answers came from other human scientists when they were questioned. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had been cooperating with the occupation government, finally revealed the scope of humanity's hidden arsenal. Every major nation on Earth had weapons development programs, she explained to a shocked audience of Zephyrian officers. "We had prototypes of devices that could extinguish stars, create artificial supernovas, and tear holes in space-time itself. But we also had something more important, the wisdom to know when not to use them." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian command structure. Intelligence reports poured in from investigation teams across Earth. Hidden bunkers contained antimatter storage facilities. Abandoned missile silos held weapons that could destroy planets. Space stations orbiting Earth's moon concealed devices that could collapse the entire solar system. Commander Vextar received the reports with growing horror. His supposedly conquered subjects possessed weapons that could have eliminated the Zephyrian Empire entirely. They had chosen defeat rather than use their ultimate weapons because they understood the consequences better than the invaders did. The most terrifying discovery came from a deep space monitoring station on Earth's moon. Dr. Helen Clark, the former director of advanced weapons research, had been running the facility since before the war. When Zephyrian investigators arrived, they found a control room filled with displays showing weapon platforms throughout human space. "These systems are still active," Dr. Clark explained matter-of-factly. "They receive regular maintenance from automated systems and respond to coded transmissions from Earth. We could activate any of them within minutes if necessary." The displays showed the locations of hundreds of hidden weapon platforms. Antimatter mines floated in asteroid belts. Quantum destabilizers orbited gas giant planets. Artificial black hole generators waited in the deep space between star systems. Each one was capable of destroying entire fleets or sterilizing whole worlds. "Why are you telling us this?" asked the lead investigator, his voice trembling with fear. Dr. Clark smiled sadly. "Because you needed to understand what you really conquered. We didn't lose the war because we were weak. We lost because we were strong enough to know better." The scope of humanity's restraint became clear as more facilities were discovered. Earth scientists had not only designed world-ending weapons, but had built them and deployed them throughout human space. They had possessed the power to stop the Zephyrian invasion before it began, but chose surrender instead. Science Director Holvar compiled a report that would change the Empire forever. His conclusion was simple, but devastating. Humanity had never been conquered. They had simply chosen to lose rather than win at an unacceptable cost. The report reached Fleet Commander Vexitar as he sat in his command center overlooking the peaceful Earth below. Reading through the documents, he realized that he was not an occupying commander, but a guest whose host had decided not to kill him. Every human city contained individuals capable of unleashing apocalyptic destruction. Every factory and school and hospital was filled with beings who could end civilizations but chose not to. The Zephyrian Empire had not conquered Earth. Earth had allowed itself to be occupied to prevent a war that would have destroyed both species. As Vexter looked down at the blue planet spinning peacefully in space, he wondered if his empire had made the greatest mistake in galactic history by attacking the one species wise enough to possess ultimate weapons and moral enough not to use them. The massive alien ships appeared in Earth's sky like dark clouds blocking the sun. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance and watched the enemy fleet through the main screen. His hands gripped the command chair as he counted the vessels. 50 enormous warships hung in space above Earth, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. "Sir, we have incoming transmission from the alien fleet," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Park from her station. Her voice stayed calm, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. "Put it on screen," Jake ordered. A tall alien with gray skin and 4 arms appeared on the display. Its voice came through the speakers with mechanical translation. "I am Fleet Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world will surrender immediately or face complete destruction. You have 1 hour to respond." The transmission cut off, and Jake turned to his crew. The bridge fell silent except for the quiet hum of computers and life support systems. Everyone knew what this meant. Earth faced its first alien invasion, and the enemy looked much stronger than anything humans could. "Fight all ships, battle stations," Jake spoke into his communicator. "Prepare for engagement. We protect Earth no matter what." Captain Kevin Brooks commanded the destroyer USS Ranger and received Jake's orders with mixed feelings. His ship carried nuclear missiles and plasma cannons, the most powerful weapons humanity had ever created. But looking at the alien vessels through his telescope, Kevin doubted their weapons would do much damage. "Load all missile tubes," Kevin told his weapons officer. "Target the lead ship and prepare to fire on my command." Across Earth's solar system, human warships moved into attack formation. The fleet included destroyers, cruisers, and battleships built over the past 30 years. Earth's government had spent trillions of dollars creating these vessels after scientists detected the first signs of alien life in distant galaxies. Now the moment of truth had arrived. The alien ships moved forward slowly, like hunters approaching wounded prey. Their dark hulls reflected no light, and strange energy fields surrounded each vessel. Human sensors could barely detect what materials the ships were made from or how their weapons worked. "Enemy ships are moving into firing range," reported Lisa Park. "They're not responding to our attempts at communication." Jake nodded and opened a channel to all human ships. "This is Admiral Morrison. Today we fight for our home, our families, and our future. Every shot counts. Fire at will." The first wave of human missiles streaked across space toward the alien fleet. Nuclear warheads with the power to level entire cities struck the enemy shields in brilliant flashes of light. Plasma beams and kinetic railgun rounds followed, creating a deadly storm of destruction that would have vaporized any human vessel. The alien ships barely slowed down. Their energy shields absorbed the nuclear explosions like rain hitting an umbrella. The plasma beams scattered harmlessly across their hulls, and the railgun rounds bounced off without leaving a scratch. "Direct hit on the lead vessel," called out Kevin Brooks over the communication system. "No visible damage. Their shields are holding." Jake watched in horror as the alien response came swift and deadly. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the enemy ships and struck 3 human destroyers. The vessels exploded instantly, their crews killed before they could even scream. More beams followed, targeting the human battleships with surgical precision. The USS Defiance shook violently as an alien weapon struck their starboard side. Sparks flew from damaged control panels and the lights flickered. Jake held onto his chair as the ship spun out of control for several seconds before the engines stabilized. "Hull breach on decks 7 and 8, shouted the damage control officer. "We've lost 40% of our armor plating." Captain Kevin Brooks tried to maneuver his ship away from the alien guns, but the enemy weapons tracked his movement perfectly. The USS Ranger took direct hits from multiple beams and began breaking apart. Kevin managed to send one final message before his ship exploded. "This is Brooks. Enemy weapons are too strong. We can't penetrate their defenses. God help us all." Tadu. Battle continued for 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. Human weapons could not break through alien shields, while enemy beams cut through human armor like paper. Ship after ship fell to the superior technology until only a few scattered vessels remained. Jake Morrison watched his fleet die around him. The USS Defiance had taken heavy damage and could barely maintain orbit. Most of his crew was dead or wounded, and the ship's weapons were destroyed. Through the smoke and flames on his bridge, Jake could see the alien fleet moving toward Earth. "Sir, incoming transmission from the surface," Lisa Park said. Her voice was weak from injuries, but she stayed at her post. President Daniel Carter appeared on the main screen. The leader of Earth looked tired and defeated. Behind him, Jake could see smoke rising from burning buildings through the window of the White House. "Admiral Morrison, our ground forces are being overwhelmed. The aliens have landed in every major city and our military cannot stop them. Tank rounds and missiles have no effect on their soldiers. They have some kind of personal shields that stop everything we throw at them." Jake closed his eyes for a moment. He had failed in his duty to protect Earth. The alien invaders were too strong and too advanced. Humanity's most powerful weapons were useless against their technology. "Mr. President, we've lost the space battle. The fleet is destroyed and the aliens control Earth's orbit. I'm sorry we couldn't do more." President Carter nodded slowly. "You did everything possible, Admiral. But now I must make the hardest decision in human history." The President opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. His voice was broadcast to every ship and every radio on Earth. The words would be remembered forever by those who survived. "This is Daniel Carter, President of Earth. Humanity surrenders unconditionally. We yield to the Zephyrian Empire and request mercy for our people. We will not resist your occupation." Jake Morrison sat in his damaged command chair and listened to humanity's surrender. Around him, the few surviving human ships powered down their weapons and waited for alien boarding parties. The greatest military force Earth had ever assembled was defeated without inflicting any serious damage on the enemy. The war was over before it had truly begun. Commander Vextar stood in his command center aboard the flagship and watched Earth through the massive viewing window. The blue planet looked peaceful now that human resistance had ended. In all his years of conquest across 17 star systems, he had never seen a species surrender so quickly and completely. The humans gave up after losing only 10% of their military forces, reported his intelligence officer. "Most species fight until we destroy 90% of their population. These creatures seem unusually weak-willed." Vextar clicked his mandibles in agreement. The Zephyrian Empire had expected months of brutal fighting to subdue Earth. Instead, the invasion was complete in less than a day. Perhaps humans were simply too primitive to understand the hopelessness of their situation. Colonel Zekmoth led the occupation forces that landed in major cities across Earth. His soldiers met little resistance as they established control over government buildings, military bases, and communications centers. Human police and military personnel laid down their weapons without being ordered to do so. In New York City, former General Patricia Hayes now worked as a liaison officer between the human population and their alien occupiers. She helped organize work crews and distributed food supplies under Zekmoth's supervision. Her cooperation impressed the colonel, who had expected human military leaders to cause trouble. "Your people adapt quickly to new situations," Zekmoth told Patricia during one of their daily meetings. "This makes the transition much easier for everyone." Patricia nodded politely, but said nothing. She had been ordered by President Carter to cooperate fully with the occupying forces. The goal was to keep as many humans alive as possible while they waited for better times. Dr. Elena Rodriguez became Earth's primary scientific liaison with the Zephyrian administration. Her job was to explain human technology and help the aliens understand Earth's industrial capabilities. Most human factories were now producing goods for the Empire instead of Earth's population. The aliens seemed particularly interested in human manufacturing techniques. Captain Troy Anderson, who had survived the destruction of his ship, now supervised construction of alien administrative buildings. His engineering knowledge proved valuable to the occupiers, who found human workers surprisingly skilled and efficient. "Your construction methods are crude but effective," the alien supervisor told Troy. "We can use these techniques to build facilities across the Empire at lower cost." Troy smiled and nodded, but inside he felt sick about helping the enemy. However, orders were orders, and keeping humans employed meant keeping them alive. Many people depended on the jobs provided by their alien rulers. Intelligence Officer Kixran spent his time studying human society and culture. His job was to compile reports that would help the Empire govern their new subjects effectively. What he discovered puzzled him greatly. Human universities contained research that seemed far too advanced for such a primitive species. Scientists, like Dr. Amy Peterson, had published papers on quantum mechanics and exotic physics that impressed even Zephyrian experts. Dr. Carl Morgan's work on antimatter theory was particularly sophisticated. How can beings who fight with chemical explosives understand such complex science? Kixran wondered aloud to his assistant. Their theoretical knowledge exceeds their practical applications by centuries. The assistant suggested that humans might lack the industrial capacity to build advanced weapons. Their society was divided into competing nations that wasted resources on pointless conflicts. Perhaps this explained why they had not developed their full potential. Meanwhile, scattered groups of former military personnel had gone underground. Major Claire Johnson organized supply caches in abandoned buildings while Sergeant Ben Turner established communication networks using hidden radio equipment. However, they made no aggressive moves against the occupation forces. Colonel Zekmoth was aware of these groups but considered them harmless. His intelligence reports described them as broken remnants of a defeated military with no heavy weapons or organized command structure. They seemed more focused on survival than resistance. "Let them hide in their holes," Zekmoth told his officers. "They pose no threat to our operations. A few dozen humans with small arms cannot challenge the might of the Empire." The occupation government began integrating Earth into the Zephyrian administrative system. Human children attended schools that taught alien history and culture alongside traditional subjects. Adults worked in factories and farms that produced goods for export to other worlds in the Empire. President Carter remained in office, but only as a figurehead who carried out alien orders. His daily broadcasts encouraged humans to cooperate with their new rulers and warned against any acts of resistance that might bring punishment. "We must accept our situation and work together to build a better future," Carter said during one speech. "The Zephyrian Empire offers us the chance to become part of something greater than ourselves." Many humans seemed to accept their fate with remarkable calm. They went to work, raised their families, and lived their lives much as they had before the invasion. The aliens provided food and shelter in exchange for labor, and most people found this arrangement tolerable. Dr. Elena Rodriguez often met with Kixran to discuss human scientific achievements. The intelligence officer wanted to understand how such an apparently primitive species had developed advanced theoretical knowledge. "Your scientists understand concepts that took our civilization thousands of years to discover," Kixran said during one meeting. "Yet your military technology is centuries behind ours. This seems impossible." Elena chose her words carefully. "Human science has always been ahead of human engineering. We can imagine things we cannot yet build. Perhaps that is simply how our minds work." This explanation satisfied Kixran for the moment, but he continued studying human research facilities. Hidden laboratories and classified documents suggested that Earth scientists had been working on projects far more advanced than anything seen during the invasion. 3 years passed peacefully under alien rule. Earth's population had adapted to their new circumstances, and productivity was actually higher than before the war. The Zephyrians began to see humans as model subjects who could be trusted with important responsibilities. Commander Vextar received regular reports praising the success of the occupation. Earth was becoming a valuable asset to the Empire, providing both raw materials and skilled workers for use throughout Zephyrian territory. The humans may have been weak warriors, but they are excellent servants, Vextar wrote in his official report to High Command. Their peaceful surrender has saved us the cost of a long war while gaining us a productive world full of useful subjects. The commander had no idea that he was sitting on top of the most dangerous weapons cache in the galaxy, maintained by beings who had chosen mercy over victory. In hidden bunkers and secret facilities around the globe, technologies that could destroy star systems waited patiently for orders that might never come. The occupation continued smoothly, but some humans knew that the peace was built on a foundation of terrible secrets that could shatter worlds if ever revealed. The news of humanity's true capabilities spread through the Zephyrian Empire like wildfire. On every world under Imperial control, beings who had celebrated the conquest of Earth now whispered fearfully about the species that could destroy galaxies, but chose not to. The psychological shockwave reached the furthest corners of Zephyrian space. Fleet Admiral Kextar found himself in an impossible position. High Command demanded answers he could not provide. How do you control beings who possess ultimate power but exercise ultimate restraint? How do you govern subjects who could end your civilization with a single command, but choose to serve you instead? The Imperial Council convened emergency sessions to discuss what they now called the Earth problem. Representatives from conquered worlds expressed growing concern about human colonies that had been established throughout the Empire. If Earth's main population possessed such terrible weapons, what about the millions of humans living on other planets? Commander Vextar received increasingly desperate messages from his superiors. Find a way to neutralize their weapons, ordered one admiral. Destroy their facilities before they change their minds about using them. But every investigation revealed the same terrifying truth. Humanity's most dangerous weapons were not machines that could be destroyed. They were ideas, knowledge, and technologies that lived in the minds of ordinary people. Dr. Sandra White worked as a school teacher on the farming world of Kepler 442b, but she understood antimatter physics better than most Zephyrian scientists. Engineer Robert Kim managed a mining operation on Proxima Centauri, yet his knowledge of space-time manipulation could reshape reality itself. The Empire faced a nightmare scenario. They ruled over millions of beings who individually possessed the knowledge to build civilization-ending weapons from common materials. Worse still, these beings had demonstrated the moral strength to choose defeat rather than use such power inappropriately. Dr. Elena Rodriguez continued her work as scientific liaison on Earth, but her role had fundamentally changed. Instead of explaining human technology to alien occupiers, she now found herself mediating between two species that were beginning to understand each other's true nature. Your people fear us now, Elena told Commander Vexitar during one of their regular meetings. But they should not. We have already made the hardest choice any species can make. We chose to lose rather than win through methods that would have destroyed our souls along with our enemies. Vextar's mandibles clicked nervously. But you still possess those weapons. Your resistance networks maintain contact with orbital platforms that could sterilize whole star systems. How can we trust beings with such power? Elena smiled sadly. You cannot trust us because of our power. You can only trust us despite it. We have already proven that we will not use ultimate weapons, even to save ourselves from conquest. What more proof of our peaceful nature could you possibly require? The resistance networks led by Commander Greg Phillips and Captain Mary Stone began receiving new types of messages from their hidden weapon platforms. Instead of status reports and readiness confirmations, the automated systems now sent daily updates about Zephyrian fleet movements throughout the galaxy. The hidden artificial intelligence systems that controlled humanity's most secret weapons had been analyzing Imperial communications for 3 years. Their reports painted a detailed picture of an empire struggling with internal rebellion, resource shortages, and the growing realization that they had conquered something beyond their understanding. The Zephyrian Empire is falling apart, Greg Phillips reported to his network commanders. 14 worlds have declared independence since news of our weapons spread. Their military cannot maintain control when every species they rule knows that humans chose mercy over genocide. President Carter received these intelligence briefings with mixed feelings. The man who had surrendered Earth to prevent galactic warfare now watched as his decision created the very instability he had hoped to avoid. But the collapse of the Zephyrian Empire was not coming through violence. Instead, it was crumbling, under the weight of a moral truth it could not answer. Species across the galaxy had learned that there existed beings powerful enough to destroy everything, yet wise enough to choose restraint instead. The revelation shattered the foundation of imperial rule, which depended on the belief that might made right. If the strongest species in known space had chosen to lose rather than win through evil means, what did that say about those who ruled through force alone? Former Admiral Jake Morrison found his role as civilian administrator becoming increasingly important as Zephyrian authority weakened. Local human communities began looking to him for leadership, while alien officials sought his advice on maintaining order during the transition period. The Empire is asking us to help them govern their own territory. Jake reported to the secret leadership council that had formed among Earth's former military commanders. They want human advisors to help maintain peace on rebellious worlds. The irony was not lost on anyone. The species that had been conquered was now being asked to help their conquerors maintain control over an empire that was dissolving due to humanity's example of moral strength. Dr. Helen Clark received a special assignment from the collapsing imperial government. Her expertise in advanced weapon systems made her uniquely qualified to assess the military capabilities of rebelling worlds, but her real value lay in her understanding of when not to use such capabilities. They want me to teach their generals about restraint, Helen explained to her colleagues. The Zephyrians are learning that conquest is easy, but ruling conquered peoples requires wisdom they do not possess. As the 4th year of occupation began, the relationship between humans and their alien rulers had transformed completely. The Zephyrians no longer acted like conquerors, but like students trying to learn from teachers who had mastered the most difficult lesson in the universe: how to wield ultimate power responsibly. Commander Vextar called a final meeting with the human leadership. Representatives from Earth's former government, military, and scientific communities gathered in what had once been the United Nations building. The Zephyrian commander stood before them not as a conqueror, but as a being seeking redemption. The Empire is ending, Vextar announced. 14 worlds have achieved independence and more follow each day. Our authority collapsed when other species learned what humanity chose to do. We cannot maintain control over an empire built on force when the strongest beings we know chose mercy instead. He paused and looked directly at former President Carter. We offer Earth its independence and formal apologies for our invasion. We also request that humanity consider joining a new alliance based on cooperation rather than conquest. Carter stood slowly, his face showing the weight of 4 years spent watching his people live under alien rule. We accept your apology and your offer of alliance. But understand this: we will never again allow ourselves to be conquered by those who mistake our mercy for weakness. The formal ceremony ending Earth's occupation took place exactly 4 years after the invasion began. As Zephyrian ships departed from Earth's orbit, they left behind a galaxy forever changed by the example of beings who possessed ultimate weapons, but ultimate wisdom to match. The new galactic alliance that emerged from the Empire's collapse was built on a simple principle that humanity had taught through their actions. True strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when destruction serves no purpose. And in hidden bunkers and secret facilities around the globe, humanity's most terrible weapons remained exactly where they had always been, maintained by beings who understood that the greatest victory was the war they chose never to fight.